What is going on, guys? Benny here. We are here to talk today about this little guy, the Burson Conductor 3X Performance, and let's see if it's any good. Let's check it out after the intro. Alright guys, so let's kind of just go over the outside of this little guy first, and then we'll go over the sound and everything else. So, let's go over the front here real quick. We're following along with an overlay of some type of video, probably just of the front. So we have here from your left to right, we have the balanced output, and then also the power button as well. We have a single-ended, also a single-ended 3.5 millimeter, the display, and then also this amazing volume knob. That's also a button as a selector, which is great. And we also have the menu button and a little IR reader, which is cool. All right, let's turn this guy around. Nice little guy, not very heavy. Great build though. Again, from your left to right, I believe. So we have the Bluetooth here. We have the USB-C. Wow, it's 2021 and they're using USB-C? That's amazing. Every company should be using this by now, not using the old school USB-A, I believe, is what a lot of people still use today, when they could just implement the USB-C. It would even work better for little smaller DACs and things like that. But this is what everyone should be going to, definitely. Then we also have the coax in, as well as Toslink. And then for the output, we have single-ended RCAs and then your XLRs for balanced, which is great. So let's go over a couple of the specs of this guy, which is really nice. So basically with that, actually no, let's go over the build still. We're still in build, right? So with that, this guy, again, it's not very heavy. It does have little rubber feet on the bottom. And why does it look like this, right? Why does it have all these little ribbings and everything around it? Well, the reason why is because the outside shroud is actually a passive heatsink, which is kind of nice. And a great thing about it is the reason why they did that is because this guy is Class A. So with Class A, normally what ends up happening is it puts out a lot of heat, right? And the reason being is because with Class A, from when the power goes in to when the power goes out to your headphones, it's at 100% all the time. It's never turned on and off. For dynamics, it's just on all the time. So, and that's a good reason with this. This guy does get a little bit warm, so I wouldn't put like a cold cup or anything on top of it. But with that, you shouldn't be putting any cup on top of this guy. But with that, yeah, it does get a little bit warm. So if you're gonna be like stacking this under anything or something like that, I wouldn't advise it. So, all right, so let's go on to the specifications. A couple of them at least some of the cool features. So one of the great things about this guy too is it's very powerful for being so small. So with that, this guy puts out 6 watts out of the XLR, puts out 3 watts out of the single-ended, which is, either of those is good enough for most people and most headphones. So it does drive headphones very well. The few headphones I did use on this guy were my Sundaras, Hi-Fiman Sundaras, my Dakoni Blues, and some Argons, and then a little bit of Koss. I think they're the Koss ones, the KC30Is, I believe. I use those as well, and it works just as fine. So with that too, this guy does, in terms of the DAC that it uses in here, it does use the Sabre ES9038. It does have Bluetooth as well. With that, this Bluetooth, it is 5.0, so it does use aptX, not aptX HD, but aptX. So if you kind of like want to do the run and go, basically, to just throw some music on there, you do have Bluetooth, which is great. This handle DSD 512, and then also in terms of through the USB, it also does handle 38-bit 786 kilohertz, which is insane. And again, I don't think you'll ever find any music, or if you want to upsample it to that, go ahead. It's kind of crazy, something very crazy. And then one of the specifications as well with that, it does use a Qualcomm Exmos chip for the DSD. It also does have a proprietary power. So in terms of that, so it's proprietary to Burson Audio, is something that they created, which is something called max current power supply. So MCPS is what they call it. So basically what that does is, it normally out of the wall in the US, you have a voltage regulation of 50 hertz to 60 hertz that come out of the wall in a cine wave. So with that, what they ended up doing with this is they jack up that cine wave's refresh speed for the voltage. So they go from 50 to 60 hertz to 170 kilohertz. Wow, that's really high. So what's the point of that, right? So basically what the point of that is it virtually just makes the noise floor so low because it's being refreshed so quickly, your ears can't hear it. So it feels like there's no noise floor. Like it's so low, like there's nothing there, and the background is so black because of that. What it does is it brings out basically better dynamics. And with this is kind of a good segue into the sound, I guess, right? So in terms of this guy as a whole, as a headphone, preamplifier, as well as DAC, for this price range, so this guy kind of goes for around $1,300 to $1,500, I believe. I don't remember the price, but it's around there. I think it's $1,500, $1,499. But with that, in that price range for an all-in-one like this, just get this. Honestly, if you have the money to spend for an all-in-one like this, and you want something that sounds amazing and super well balanced, this is the guy to get. So, in terms of the lows, how do the lows sound? Let's get a little bit into it, a little bit more audiophile area. So in terms of the lows, in my Sandaras, they don't reach super low, right? They're kind of like a good reference headphone for starting audiophiles, and if you want a decent reference headphone in the soundscape. That's the way I see it. In the Sandaras, it's very present in terms of the lows. It's not crazy punchy, but it is very present, and it's not boomy in any way. When it comes to listening to them on the Dakoni Blues and also the Argons, it's a little bit, it's tightened up. There's more bass down there than in my Sandaras, obviously, because my Sandaras are open back, and the Dakoni Blues are semi, as well as Argons closed. So with that, it's a little bit more punch, and there's a little bit more bass in there. Again, it's present and a little bit more, but nothing crazy. In terms of having issues with driving the Argons, no issues, unless you're like trying to listen to something at stupid amounts of volume. Obviously, you You can change the gain on this to high, which I preferred it in. So in terms of the mids are great. They're sweet and forward. The only thing with it is with specific female singers, being that this has interchangeable op amps. So this one, it comes with 4 V6 Vivid op amps from Burson, and those are their more sparkly high end and get every little detail that you can and as much resolution out as you can out of it. And it sounds great. It sounds amazing. But for my liking, I kind of a little bit more of a softer top end for kind of longer listening sessions. But in terms of that, if you're a person that likes all that detail and loves all that resolution, having all Vivid V6 op amps, this would be definitely for you. So in terms of the highs, again, it's a little bit shiny for me and a little bit too sparkly for me for super long listening sessions, excuse me. But with that, when I say long listening sessions, I'm saying anything past 2 hours on the headphones. And some people don't even have that much time or spend that much time at their desk, so, you know, mileage may vary. But for me, if I'm sitting here at my desk for longer than 2 hours, listening to specific songs and listening to specific singers, like some Haley Reinhart, a little bit too high in up there, and it hurts a little bit on some songs. But again, I'm kind of sensitive to the upper highs, and I like having a more relaxed top end. When it comes to all the nuances though, which is amazing, by the way, again, this comes back to, I believe, them using their proprietary power supply, the MCPS, so the max current power supply, their version of how to power this guy, and having that virtually bottomless noise floor. What ends up happening is you get all those little nuances and things like that. Even in something in a headphone that kind of has a rolled off highs on its own, you still hear those things. Like if you're listening to a live performance and someone's fidgeting in their chair, or if someone's like sniffling or coughing like way deep in the music, you can hear it. And that's so amazing about this guy. One of the things I did request from Burson was I did request their V6 Classic op amps as well, because you can mix and match those op amps. So I would like to mix 2 classic op amps into this and see if it kind of like smooths out that top end for me, and then I could have this guy to my liking, which is pretty amazing in terms of being able to do something like that. I really wonder if you could do like certain configurations of like 1 Vivid and then 3 classics, 3 Vivids and 1 classic. You know, there's so many combinations for those, just to get that customization down for my listening, which is amazing, because then you could get this guy to exactly what you want it to be. So in terms of that, let's jump into the Soundstage. Soundstage was very decent. When it came to listening to it, like with my Sundaras, Soundstage was not the hugest soundstage in the world, but when it came to the Soundstage itself, it's definitely big enough, and big enough for my liking, and I usually love really big sound stages. But with certain things, again, it's usually up to the headphone or the speakers. So in terms of that, it's great. Imaging is great, very centered, very good. If they're like moving on the stage itself, it did very well at being able to blend and being able to pick where you needed to, where the singer was. With that, when I used it, so let's jump into other uses that I use this for. Another one that I used it for would be, I use this as a preamplifier. So I changed it to preamplifier, And basically with that, you can, the other great thing is they give you this little remote, which is awesome. This is a very good remote. The reason why I say it's awesome is because it's stamped aluminum and it says Burson on it, and it's made out of metal. Even the buttons are made out of metal, and this is so you can use it as a preamplifier. And I'm so happy they didn't go with some crappy piece of plastic remote, which is great. So on here, it does everything that you need technically for a remote. You have mute, which is the top button, changing your inputs, and then volume up and down. How simple. Every freaking company that has some type of DAC that can be used as a preamplifier, get a freaking remote. Not everyone does this. And for the amount this costs, this is a no-brainer to have. And it's a great little customer service thing where it's like, oh, this comes with it. Amazing. Mind-blowing. So with that, that's great. I did use it with a Rotel 1572, which is something I borrowed from my friend, and it sounded perfectly fine. I had no weird issues with crosstalk or anything like that. I did use it also just as a DAC, and using it just as a DAC, I don't like the Sabre 9038 that much to my ears. I think just for me, it's not my favorite DAC. So it is adequate if you're gonna be using it that way. Like if you're gonna be having this used as a DAC into like an integrated or something like that, it's perfectly adequate. Nothing wrong with it. But it's not my most favorite use of this because this is an all-in-one. If you're gonna use this for anything, I would use it for strictly a headphone amplifier or a preamplifier, because using it as either one of those, best uses. And then again, if you just need to use it as a DAC, go ahead and do that as well. That's the last thing I would use it for. So with that, who is this for really, right? Who's gonna spend the $1,500 on this thing? Well, for most people, this would be kind of, if you needed an all-in-one like this would be an end game for most people. It would be, because from what I hear and the way I've experienced music with this guy, and also gaming and other things, this does everything right. When it comes to the sound with low, mids, and highs, it is very well balanced between those frequencies. And when I'm saying, like, when I was going in between each one of them, oh, the highs are so high for me, and it's like, again, these are very small nuances where my ears are very sensitive to that being up there, and it could be perfectly fine for you. So when it comes to that, another great thing about Burson is they do have a 30-day return policy. So you could keep this guy for up to that time and be like, if you don't like it, you could send it back. You could also get those other op amps like the V6 Classics and mess with the op amps in there as well. With that too, I would consult basically asking how to put them in. In my next video in the future, I'll kind of go over that. But if you put the op amp in the wrong way, you could blow the thing and it won't work anymore. But we'll go over that in the next video. But with that, then they also have a 2-year warranty plus 1 year, which I'm assuming is the kind of the phone call customer service for a whole year after that. But 2 years and then 30 days of use if you want to check it out and see if you like it for that much. And this isn't very big either, so if you were going to bring it to an office and use it there, this guy, perfectly adequate and great use scenario for it too. So what do I think of this guy? Again, kind of like what I said at the start of the review. If you have $1,400 to $1,500 and you want something that sounds great through all the frequencies and has 3 use cases, you could throw this in a backpack, take it to work, put it back in the backpack, and take it back home. Like, that's amazing. If you want to use it like that, because again, this isn't big. It's like the size of a small book. Like, so with that, I would say complete recommendation on my part, and amazing. Amazing. Burson Audio, amazing. So good. So with that, guys, if you have any questions at all about this guy, leave them down in the comments, as always, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. And if you have any questions about my testing or anything like that, always ask that down below. I will leave the full specifications of this guy as well in the drop down below as well. And then also I will leave a link to where you can buy this guy. And yeah, again, I would say this is definitely a go-to. And with that, I'll leave a couple other links up here as well, where you can go check out my other reviews. And again, guys, I will see you in the next one.